Hello everyone, I am Dr. Jyoti Mandala. Welcome you all to the video lectures on C programming. So from this lecture onwards, we will be going to learn about the C programming, how to program using this C programming language. I am very happy to meet you all through this video lectures and through this virtual mode. So let us start our first lecture of this C programming. So what we'll do is, instead of going directly into the C programming, in today's lecture, let us learn about the introduction to our computers. Right? Normally, from where the computer's word has been taken. The word computer has been taken from a Latin word which stands for compute. The word Latin word which stands for compute. That means compute is nothing but calculate. So after this, we'll see the definition of a computer. So how can we define a computer? Computer can be defined as an electronic device which accepts an input through the keyboard and it stores that input into the memory and it performs the required operation with that input and finally it will display the output. Okay, so for your reference, I'll be writing the definition here. So this is the definition of a computer. So as it was already told, computer is nothing but an electronic device. It will accept the input through the input device. So we, as an example, we can consider our input device as a keyboard, or else you can give the input through the mouse also. And once the input is given, it stores that input into the memory if required, and then it will perform the action or the task, which is also called as a task. And once the operation is performed, the output will be displayed on the screen, which is called as our monitor. So this is how the computer can be defined. So everything is done electronically, so that's why it is called as an electronic device, because power supply is required to do these tasks. Right? Now, once you are familiar with the definition of this computer, you should know what actually an operating system is. What is nothing but an operating system? Normally, whenever you have a computer, it will be having two parts, software part and a hardware part. About the software and hardware, let us learn in detail, but hardware is nothing but your keyboard, your monitor, all those components are called as hardware parts. Now, whenever you want to work with those hardware parts, and the user want to use those things, there should be a mediator. If you see two persons communicating, like a person who speaks in Hindi and one person who speaks in English, let us consider, and these two persons will be knowing their own languages only. Now, to happen a communication between these two persons, there should be a mediator who will be transferring the data from into the other language. So that person, in our case, where the operating system will be called as an interface or a mediator, which acts a mediator between the computer hardware and between the user of the computer and the computer hardware. That means between your hardware components, whatever you have, if you want to use, as a user, if you want to use those computer hardware components, there should be a mediator, which is called as a system software, and that software is called as your operating system. Right? So we have so many operating systems available, like Windows operating system, Unix operating system, Linux operating system, and these operating systems can be installed into your system, or else in your mobile devices you will be having an operating system also, like your Android operating system. Right? So these are all the different types of operating systems. So this is about your operating system. Now, once you are familiar with this operating system, now let us see what are all the 4 functions that are performed by a computer. So these are all the 4 functions that are performed by the computer. The first thing is it will accept the input, which is called as an input function. And once the input is accepted, it will process the data, that means execute the thing or performs the task, which is called as a process. And once it is done, it will produce the output, that means it will give us the result, which is called as output. And this can be done through the output devices. And if required, it will store the results, whatever else generated. And that is called as store, and it is stored in our memory. So these are all the 4 functions that are performed by the computer. Now we'll see the components of the computer. So normally the computer components are, we have normally these 3 components required. The first one is input device like a keyboard, and output device like a monitor, and we require a CPU. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. And what is the use of this keyboard is, keyboard is one form of input device. That means on the keyboard we'll be having number of keys, starting from alphabets to numbers to special character symbols to special function keys. Like that, we have so many number of keys. Through those keys, we'll be giving the input to the computer, or else we can use a mouse also, through which we can do the input. And through the output device, which is a monitor, which is used to show the output in the visual form, and we can see the output on the monitor. Along with these three, we have one more component called CPU. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. Now, this is called as a brain of the computer, and its main responsibility is for controlling and executing the program instructions. So, whatever task you assign to the computer, performing the process, here I told you know the function of the computer is process, and this process functionality is done by this CPU. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. This CPU in turn have internally its own memory. So in detail about the CPU, we'll see later. Now let us highlight the characteristics of the computer. Characteristics in sense why we need to shift to the computer. We'll see what are all things that can be done through the computer which a human being can't do. So let us highlight the characteristics of the computer. So these are the main characteristics of the computer. I have highlighted the 6 characteristics, but it is not limited to these 6 characteristics only. So let us see what all these 6 characteristics are. First one is speed. What is nothing but a speed of a computer? Speed is nothing but normally the computer is a fast electronic device that can solve large and complex problems in few seconds. See, whatever task is done by a human being, where the human being will be taking a number of hours or more number of days, that task can be simply done by the computer in few seconds. Got it? A simple example, if you see, if you want a person to perform addition of 2 numbers, he can do within a seconds. Addition of 3 numbers, addition of 4 numbers. If you go on increasing, if you ask a person to do addition of 50 numbers, then that task he will take minimum of 10 minutes to do that task. Right? So, but the same task can be performed by the computer within a seconds. So here is a simple example. So speed also matters. So the biggest characteristic of a computer is speed. That means it will finish the task very fast. Next one is storage. Now, why we are considering this storage? Storage is nothing but as a human being, our storage is limited. We can't store everything into our brain, right? So we can store some part only. So we can memorize those things and we can produce that output. But everything, if you want to store in our brain, which is very difficult. So, but whereas coming to the computer can store huge amount of data in different formats also. As a human being, we don't have such an option, but in computer, we can store huge amount of data, even in huge amount of data, which can also be stored in different formats also, right? Third one is accuracy. What do you mean by accuracy is nothing but performing the calculations with greater accuracy. Greater accuracy is nothing but, suppose if you are asking the user to perform multiplication of 2 numbers, that is considered like with the decimal numbers you have, like fractional numbers you have, then it is difficult for the user to generate the output accurate result. But if you are using a computer, the results will be generated with greater accuracy. Right? Next one is reliability. Reliability is nothing but there is no chance like a computer will generate an error. If a computer is generating an error, it is nothing but it has been programmed wrongly by the user only. So computers produces results with no error, which is called as reliability. But as a human being, there may be a chance that we can generate outputs with errors, but computers will not generate any errors. The results without any errors. Suppose even if it is giving errors, it is the mistake from our end only where we have programmed the computer in a wrong way. Got it? Now, next one is versatility. Versatility is nothing but a computer A computer can perform a task in a task which can be used for different purposes. So say uh, a computer is capable of performing repetitive calculations and any number of times this with the same level of accuracy. Suppose if you ask the human being to do the same task for one time, he can do with a greater accuracy. For two times, okay. But if you ask for 10 times, there will be a little bit divergence in the accuracy. But whereas coming to the computer can perform the same task multiple times with the same level of accuracy. Got it, all of you? So these are all the functionalities of the computer. Right? So I repeat once again, computer system includes these components: hardware, software, input devices, output devices, CPU and memory. So totally all these are collectively called as a computer system. Now let us see what actually hardware is. Hardware is nothing but physical parts of your computer, whatever you have, those are referred as your hardware components. So I'll write here physical components. Physical components are nothing but your things which you can touch and feel, like your monitor, your keyboard, all these things are called as a hardware components. Now software component is nothing but your set of instructions which are called as a program, which is given to perform a specific functionality. Such a thing is called as a software component. What do you mean by the software? Set of instructions. So these things we can't touch, set of instructions. This is set of instructions are nothing but your program. Now why we program a computer? To perform a specific functionality, and that is referred as your software. Already I told you an operating system is one type of software. So that we can't touch, but it will perform some tasks. So that's why it is called as a software. Right? Now, along with that, we have input devices and output devices. These two comes under a category of input devices, output devices, CPU and memory. These things comes under a category of hardware components. So let us learn in detail about these hardware components now. Right? Now coming to the input devices. So I'll erase this one. So let us learn about these hardware components. Input devices are nothing but the device through which you give the input, and we have an input devices like keyboard, mouse. We have some other input devices also like joystick, and normally this joystick will be used whenever you are using the gaming of whenever you play any game, then you'll be using this joystick. Light pen is one example. So like this, we have different types of input devices. The main aim of this input device is to give the input to the computer. Next one is your output device. Output device is nothing but through which you are generating the output, like monitor, right? And then you have a printer through which you will be getting a document that is printed onto the paper, and then speaker through which you can listen to a voice. So these are some of the examples of your output devices, right? And then you have a CPU. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, right? And this CPU in turn have three more parts. And the first part is your control unit. Second part is your ALU. ALU stands for Arithmetic and Logical Unit. This will be performing all the arithmetic and logical operations, and then it will be having these registers. What is the use of these registers is, it will be using to store the data that will be processed by the CPU. Now let us see in detail control unit. What is the use of this control unit? Already I told you CPU is the brain of your computer, and the CPU will be having these three parts. Control unit is nothing but it will be generating some control signals, and these signals will be used for executing the instructions that will be given to the computer. Whatever instructions you give, that will be performed by this arithmetic and logical unit. Okay, now once those operations like addition operation, subtraction operation, or AND operation or operations, those operations will be performed by this arithmetic and logical unit. And then we have registers, and these registers are used for storing the data while performing this arithmetic logical operation, and everything will be controlled by using this control unit. Right? Now coming to the memory part, which is also a hardware component. Normally we have two types of memory. Those two types of memories are primary memory, and we have a second category which is called as secondary memory. Okay, primary memory examples are like your hard disks. Primary memory is your RAM and ROM, and the secondary memory examples are your hard disks, magnetic tapes, your pen drives. All these will come under your secondary memory. Now let us learn in detail about this primary memory and secondary memory. Primary memory is also called as your main memory, right? And secondary memory is called as your auxiliary memory. Now auxiliary spelling is wrong. Auxiliary memory. Now what is this? Main memory is nothing but normally in this main memory we have two categories again. What are the two categories? Are random access memory, RAM, and we have read-only memory. Now what is this random access memory is nothing but for the time being, whatever operations you will be performing, that will be available in this memory. Now what happens in this memory is, if the power supply is off, whatever data is there in this RAM, random access memory, will be erased. But whereas coming to the ROM, ROM stands for read-only memory. It is nothing but even if the power supply is not there, the data will be available in this ROM. It is used for storing the data for long amount of data. Now, whenever you want to perform any task, now from this ROM, the data will be transferred to the RAM, and then the CPU will be taking the data from the RAM and will perform the operations. Now, you need to take care, you need to understand one thing here. Whenever you want to perform any task, that is considered you have designed 100 programs. All the 100 programs can be stored in the ROM, but whatever program you want to execute now, that should be copied from the ROM to the RAM, first, and then only you can execute. So presently executing a program should be available in your RAM, random access memory. So here the data will be erased when the power supplies went off, but even if the power supply goes off, then also the data will be available in the row. Coming to this secondary memory is nothing but is your auxiliary memory, like your additional memory, like your pen drives, okay, or else you can have your external hard disk, okay. All these comes under your secondary memory. So additional memory, if you want, that additional memory can also be connected to your computer, and that can be considered as your secondary memory. Got it, all of you? So this is about your memory part. Along with this primary memory and secondary memory, you can have one more memory also, which is called as a cache memory. What is the use of this cache memory is, this cache memory will be acting as a mediator between your CPU and your main memory. It will be acting as a mediator between your CPU and main memory. Now, what is the requirement of acting a mediator? So, in between CPU and main memory, we have a cache memory. So, what is the requirement of having a cache memory in between CPU and main memory is to get your data very fast. So the processing time, so the accessing time is more when the CPU is accessing the data directly from the main memory, it will be more. But if you store the data in the cache memory, then the time required to access the data will be very less. So to access your data very fast, you can use this cache memory. Got all of you? So this is about your computer components, hardware components. These are all your hardware components. Now let us see about your software components. Software components, I already told you, it is nothing but a set of instructions. Now, what type of software components we can have? We have two types of software components. Those are system software and application software. Now, what do you mean by system software? System software is nothing but this is very essential for coordinating or for communicating with the peripherals, with your hardware components. Like your system software is nothing but your operating system. Got all of you? Application software is nothing but you have a specific software installed into your system, so that if you want to use that application, if you want to, let us consider, you want to write something, you want to use this MS Office document, then you want to install this Office software into your system, then such a thing is called as your application software. Application software is used to perform a specific task. System software will be acting as a like operating system, which will be acting as a mediator between the user of the computer and the computer peripheral devices, right? But application software is nothing but which is used to perform a specific task, like your C programming language. Let us continue. You want to develop C programs, then you need to install that C software into your system. Got it, all of you? Such a thing is called as a system software. Right? So let us come to an end of your today's lecture, where in today's lecture we learned about the definition of a computer, what is nothing but an operating system, functions of the computer, and we learned about the components of the computer, what are the characteristics of the computer, and we learned about hardware components and software components. Right? So in the next class, we'll learn about what are all the different types of programming languages we have. So let us all meet in our next class. Thank you, all of you.